And good morning, world. It is about 7:45 in the morning on Tuesday, the 28th, 29th of December 2015. The days blur into one another when you're doing astrology sometimes. So I'm looking at the long-term future. Over the last day, in fact, well, yesterday and the day before, I've been doing a few readings for people, and one or two things have been coming up that are out of the ordinary. People have been looking at long-term residential situations, especially with regard to property prices and what some people are calling the coming financial restructuring. We had the so-called correction in 2008, where it was supposed to change everything and bring everything into much more equality, but instead all that happened is that the criminal bankers got away with it and the bonuses just kept getting bigger. And capitalism continued to be rampant. Obviously, you can only stretch a bit of elastic so far before it snaps back. And I'm looking at both the medium and the long-term potentials here. The medium term talks of 2016, and not so much the first half. The first half of 2016 is preoccupied with Saturn square Neptune and the ongoing confusion, the religious warfare that's going to obscure the underlying economic increasing bad news. But the more we get into June of next year, and especially at the very end of May and the very start of June of next year, where there is one hell of a grand cross, including a new moon, for a period of a week, I do expect the economic situation to take a bit of a lurch downhill. But that will only be the start of it. The more we get into the second half of the year and Saturn-Neptune clears, then we're going to see Jupiter really beginning to bite. Jupiter's going to be squaring Saturn and opposing Neptune both during April while Jupiter is retrograde and later in the year around September time, August-September time. And I do expect at that time a financial adjustment and correction in the markets later in the year when Jupiter will be squaring Pluto. I'm expecting this correction to become much more severe and permanent, and it would not surprise me at all if the more we get into the end of 2016 and especially the first 2 or 3 months of 2017, there were to be a large scale and probably permanent financial correction. And the most obvious area that this is going to take place in is the first world overheated property price boom. So I do expect a significant shift in property prices, especially in what I see as the stupid areas, London, Manhattan, Tokyo, Singapore, where property is just completely overvalued. But this is only what I see as the medium-term outcome. If there is to be a financial correction within the next 12 to 15 months, which I truly suspect there will be, and a more balancing of economic wealth across the world, then this will only lead to further corrections over the next couple of years. And this does lead up to the grand conjunction of 2019 and 2020. This is when Jupiter and Saturn and Pluto will all come very close together. They won't all exactly conjoin, but they'll all be very close to each other in the latter part of Capricorn. Capricorn over the millennia has been known as the sign that deals with structure, order, and at the global level, things around world government. For decades and decades, people have been saying that yes, when Pluto moves into Capricorn, we will have some essence of world government. And I think the EU has been a failed attempt at initiating this. It's become too bureaucratic, which is why it's probably not going to continue functioning the way it is for that much longer. But out of the ashes, the phoenix will rise. And I do suspect that by the time we're into 2019 and 2020, there won't be so much a world government per se, because there are so many disparate races in the world that the idea of everyone being controlled by one imposed authority just isn't going to work. But there is a way that does seem to be bringing a much greater sense of equality around the world, and that will be through the not the imposition, but the workings of a one-off global currency. Of course, if there's going to be a global currency come 2019, 2020, of course the next question is, well, who's going to control it? Who are the bankers? Who will have the power? And it does seem that whenever, since biblical and pre-biblical times, wherever there's been the control of money, there has always been the vestiges of power and the elite. And humanity doesn't seem to be able to get out of its attitude towards, well, I've got the power, therefore I'm the boss, therefore I should have more than everyone else. This is profit at its worst, and it is rampant capitalism. So there needs to be a solution that does not place power in the hands of an elite few who control the banks. And that's where cryptocurrencies come in. Perhaps 2%, 1 to 2% of my business now is being done in Bitcoin. And whilst Bitcoin itself may not last through to 2019, 2020, it is the forerunner of the cryptocurrency where there are no banks and there are no bankers. It is run by a bunch of algorithms which are not given to profit. And I suggest that the more we get into 2019 and 2020, we're going to see this type of cryptocurrency emerging as the de facto global currency. And that will lead to the disempowerment of the elite control blocks that we've had so far, whether it be the British establishment, the American banks, the Chinese or Russian politicians, the Far Eastern business people, doesn't matter. It does seem that 2016 is going to be the start, towards the end of 2016 anyway, is going to be the final start of the breakthrough and the transition from insane, amoral profit grabbing into a more socially minded distribution of resources and wealth, and that can only come soon enough, in my opinion. And with Jupiter moving into square Pluto at the end of next year, I think that this is going to be a question of needing to happen. It's not going to be voluntary unless people do it in advance. So 2016, folks, it's going to be an interesting year. Watch this space. Catch you later. Bye.